Halfway down the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, Scotland, is a narrow little alley or close called Mary King's Close. There are tons of little closes like this all over the city, but the real Mary King's Close is very special. It allows you a glimpse into the past and an opportunity to virtually step back in time. Let's check it out. Back in 2012, my husband and I traveled throughout the country of Scotland. This was before my YouTube days, but I still want to share this particular story with you today. Edinburgh is a city dripping with history. Castles, cobblestone streets, old cemeteries, and monuments. You can check out my video on Edinburgh's historic pubs in the Grassmarket district to hear more crazy stories from the past after you've watched this video. I'd read about Mary King's Close before coming to Scotland, and I knew that I wanted to go see it. This close is famous mainly because of how well preserved it is. While other closes in the city have become dead ends or been completely filled in, the real Mary King's Close remains much as it was hundreds of years ago. Let me explain.
For those of you unsure what a close actually is, they are narrow alleys between buildings that run perpendicular to the main roads of Edinburgh. Remnants of medieval streets from a time when the lanes were large enough for only a couple of horses to squeeze past one another.
During the medieval days in Edinburgh, the city was arranged quite differently than it is today. The aristocracy lived uphill, near the castle, in order to gain favor from the king. At this level, things were grand and clean, relatively speaking, for the day. After that, the city literally ran downhill, moving lower and lower towards the Firth of Forth estuary and the poorer sections of town. As the city angled downwards, so did the buildings, leveling lower and lower. The less status you had, the smaller and lower your house was as well. Due to all of this, the city of Edinburgh was on a slant.
This is all pertinent knowledge to have in order to understand the real Mary King's Close. This close is quite literally underground and a doorway into these medieval days of Edinburgh existence. As the city of Edinburgh expanded, grew, and modernized, they built upwards, constructing newer buildings on top of the older, original, and uglier structures. Entire sections of the city were forever buried, shut up, and sealed away.
There are many rumors and stories surrounding this subterranean place, some myth and some based in truth. But what actually went on in this warren of claustrophobic alleyways? Before the closes were sealed up, they had a pretty horrific past. For the purposes of this video, we'll just focus on the real Mary King's Close, although what happened in Mary King's Close pretty much happened throughout the city. The close was named after, of course, Mary King, who was a wealthy merchant burgess and widow who lived in the area around the year 1635.
Because of the cramped and squalid conditions in the closes, pests and rodents were always a problem. When the Bubonic Plague hit the city, the closes were a perfect place for the disease to spread and dominate. The Black Plague peaked in the city of Edinburgh around 1645, and an incalculable number of people perished.
If you don't know much about the Bubonic Plague, here is a quick and disturbing history lesson.
The bubonic plague is caused by the Yersinia pestis bacterium, not actually found inside the rats, but in the fleas that take a piggyback ride on the rats. Once the fleas entered a home via their rat Uber, they'd spread to the hay bedding, dirty clothes, and unwashed bodies of the residents in the Edinburgh closes. Symptoms included swollen glands all over the body, including the neck, armpits, and groin. These would then fill with pus and bulge out, hence the name bubonic plague after these gruesome buboes-shaped nodes. Individuals in the final throes of the disease could experience ruptured nodes, rotting extremities which caused fingers and toes to turn black, also why it was known as the Black Plague, and gut-wrenching vomiting which could rupture intestinal organs. Not a fun experience.
Now picture all of that, multiplied by thousands, all jammed into close quarters within the closes, where many people lived in two-room apartments, all stacked one upon the other. With no sewage system in place, people just tossed the contents of their chamber pots out into the street with a holler of "Gardy-loo!" Pay attention, or you'd get hit with it from any given angle. All of these disgusting conditions, of course, led to the bubonic plague running rampant throughout the closes of Edinburgh. Dr. George Ray, Edinburgh's official plague doctor in the early 1600s, was probably the bravest man in the entire country during this era.
He willingly entered the homes of plague-stricken families and saved many lives by lancing the infected lymph nodes with a scorching hot poker, potentially draining the worst of the bacteria out of the body. The ironic thing is, while Dr. Ray was the hero of the day, his outfit made him look like the villain. To protect his own health, he wore a thick leather cloak to protect against rats and fleas, and a bird-like mask filled with a special herb mix to help ward off the stench of his patients. You may have even seen this getup for events like Halloween or Carnivale, but no one seems to wear them in order to pretend to practice medicine.
Because of the staggeringly high amount of deaths that occurred in the real Mary King's Close during this time, understandably, many people believe that this alleyway is haunted. There are certain areas in the close that even staff members won't visit alone. By the year 1750, Mary King's Close was as dilapidated as ever, and not really a place that people were excited to live in or do business in. In order to gentrify the city, a plan was proposed.
A beautiful new building called the Royal Exchange was set to be erected as a place where merchants and bankers could do business without having to sink into the cesspools which were the closes of Edinburgh's Royal Mile. This building would also help to redesign the face of the city, as the closes were slated to be covered up and built over, and the major slant that Edinburgh was on would become much more level.
As I stated earlier, some portions of the closes were filled right in, some completely destroyed, and others just sealed up and made into hollow little caverns underneath the city. Mary King's Close, however, remains much the same as it ever was. Contrary to popular rumor, families did not continue to reside in the underground neighborhood. In fact, it was illegal for people to remain living underground. However, many people were unceremoniously displaced due to the above-ground construction and forced to live elsewhere without due compensation.
When Joey and I visited Mary King's Close, at a cost of £13 each, we knew it would be well worth the price. You cannot explore Mary King's Close on your own. It is dark, damp, and dreary, and requires the expertise and safety of a knowledgeable tour guide. Each tour lasts about an hour, and we found it to be immensely entertaining. The guides dress up in period costume and channel the persona of a real individual who used to live in the close. While on tour, we were led from room to room, where dioramas, videos, and real relics from the time period of the close were set up. These told us a story of not just the close, but of the history of the whole era. Items covered were the judicial system of Edinburgh's medieval days, of course, the Black Plague and its effects on the citizens of the close and the entire city, and the sanitation and hygiene evolution. I found it interesting to learn that during the Black Plague, people were not sealed away and left to die in the close, as I'd been told before. The plague had occurred long before the close was sealed, and doctors like Dr. Ray had made home visits to them. If people could not be treated, they were taken to live in a hospice outside the city limits of Edinburgh.
In a city that has hundreds upon hundreds of years of history, every street corner in Edinburgh seems to have a story. But the tales that you will hear while visiting the real Mary King's Close are definitely worth a visit.
Have you ever heard of Mary King's Close before? Would you brave a visit to this supposedly haunted underground venue? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this macabre video, leave me a thumbs up and possibly share it out on social media. And if you're new here, then welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button to be updated whenever I post a new video.